Doctor Who exactly? A web video show consisting out of me talking to a camera, trying very unprofessionally so to dissect what works and what doesn't work in an episode of Doctor Who for me personally, which makes me right because I'm the one making a video, you're not. Now you may remember last week when I said this. So yeah, decent episode, but like I said before, thematically, like in a sense of continuity within the series, this episode felt very the same as the previous. I'm here to tell you that this week, Doctor Who is different. So yeah, I have to retread this argument a little bit. One of the strengths in Doctor Who I find is that because of the format of the show, you can basically do whatever you want. You can have a haunted house story, you can have an alien invasion, you can have a personal combat of, you know, against your split personality, all kinds of things. And what I thought of the first episode, The Woman Who Fell to Earth, the second episode, The Ghost Monument, is that they felt very similar in tone and, you know, the events happening. It may have been just because of Chris Chibnall writing all of it by himself, but, you know, it wasn't bad per se. It just made me afraid that the rest of the series would be all similarly set in tone and you would not have any real outstanding gems. No things that make you go like, wow, that was different. This episode is Rosa. It's named after Rosa Parks. It's pretty much a historical episode. The Doctor and her companions are trying to make sure history goes along the right course the way it has to. And there's no aliens, there's very little to do in high-tech sci-fi. The Doctor has a sonic screwdriver, she doesn't really use it. They save the day using a bus schedule, basically. So Rosa Parks, I've been thinking about this, it's like the closest equivalent I could think of is Vincent and the Doctor. And compared to that, this one is a lot more serious. Vincent and the Doctor tackled things like depression and how a magical day, like a great day, can't undo like an entire lifetime of toil, or you know, the things that make our brains the way our brains work sometimes, or not work like we had hoped they would or should. But in the end, it still had a giant invisible parrot turkey creature that was blind itself, and it was separated from some kind of invisible herd of giant turkey bird creatures, and it got stabbed with an easel. No such thing here. Here we have a human antagonist, and all the threat is just very human level. Like most of the malice of this episode comes from the era it was set in, 1950s America. Because like I said, all this episode revolves around is Rosa Parks. And yes, you're watching a white, fat, cis-het wasp, all kinds of acronyms, I don't know. You're watching a beardy white bloke on the internet talk about Rosa Parks, and that can only end well. This episode is pretty powerful, and that's saying something. Like, I have no direct connection to the events and the stuff leading around this episode. As you can see, like I said, I am very white. I have probably never been discriminated against as far as I'm aware. Yeah, life's pretty sweet, I must say. So, when this episode starts off with some very heavy racial abuse, that's not something I expected in Doctor Who. And you know what? I'm quite happy they did that. I'm quite happy they tackled such heavy material. And the writer of this episode, alongside Chris Chibnall, we've discussed this before, you know that. So the writer is as well, it's a woman of colour, and her experiences, obviously, they shine through very heavily so in the text of this. And it's not even subtext, it's just literally just text of the script. I'm not talking about the text as in it's written out, I'm talking about narrative text. Wow. Ryan getting slapped by that bloke in the opening, by that dude, calling him boy, it was a bit terrifying, and he wasn't even an alien monster of sorts. I feel silly talking about this in a big blonde wig. Race is a big thing in our society, and I must admit, I don't know if it's a bigger thing now than it was 10 years ago, or whether or not it was more on the forefront, less on the forefront back then, because social media and, you know, interconnectivity for everybody with cell phones and in the internet was not as great as it is nowadays. So watching two characters, specifically a African British person and a lady from Middle Eastern origin, discuss things like this and be subjugated to it, and as well Bradley Walsh's reaction, or Graham's reaction rather, the character, to having to be complicit in, you know, pretty much out and about racism, because to keep it's very heavy stuff. And I think that it's good for a family show to tackle this, because not only do you get kids to realise that maybe things aren't idealistic as they would like to think, or as we would like to present them, it's something to have the parents talk about. And before you go, like, I like my shows before they were political. Doctor Who's done lots of stuff like this in the past, loads. And even if you look at stuff like the most basic of the basics, like 80s cartoons, how many of them did do those PSAs at the end, like, and now you know, and knowing is half the battle, go Joe! And Inspector Gadget telling you not to accept candy from strangers. I see this as pretty much on the same level as that. Like, it's a way to get a certain message across to kids. And yeah, this was a great episode. It worked for me on nearly all levels, and the niggles I have are not even worth mentioning. When I said, like, I don't see the Ghost Monument being a recommended viewing, like you have to watch this episode in Doctor Who whenever it's on TV, I would say that Rosa is one of those. It can be hard on some people, I can imagine, but yeah, good television, good Who, and I'm so glad that Doctor Who is still capable of throwing us a curveball like this, like changing the format of the series. Quite happy with that. Seeing as the next episode is going to be about spiders in Great Britain, and the monsters being spiders, and I think we're gonna go back to the classic tacky, running through corridors bit very quickly, but I'm very happy we had this little sidestep for just a little bit. So, please let me know what you thought of the episode, if you think my ramblings on racism and how it affects people and television and mentioning G.I. Joe makes me dumb. Please, there's a comment section. God invented a comment section for that. You can like, comment, subscribe, smash bells, social medias, something like that. You can do whatever you want. Blur. And yes, I am planning to get a new camera that stops doing the autofocus thing. It's a work in progress. It's a whip. I like saying that word, whip. See you soon. Also, how great was that doo-wop song at the beginning of the episode? Also, doesn't anybody else think that Rosa Parks' leitmotif sounded so much like a Star Trek song? Like, not like a background Star Trek. It's like the brass. Come on, someone!